To you in peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. This is Wednesday, and so this is us here at Olive Grove Baptist Church in Norfolk, Virginia, in our regular Wednesday night showdown, throwdown, where we have our Bible study. We had a really good time last week with our discussion of the end of the rule of Samson as the 13th judge in Israel. And tonight we resume our conversation with the study of chapter 17. On our way to chapter 17, having greeted you who are with us in a virtual way, join us, if you will, in prayer. Amen. Gracious God, we thank you for the blessings of another day and for the privilege that allows us to come together in your house in your name, that here we might sing and say praises unto you, that we might examine your word for its strength in our life, so that we might understand more clearly what it is you're calling us to be and to be like. Breathe on us in these moments, and we shall forever praise your name through Christ, our Savior and Lord, we pray. Amen. All right. I was in Germany in the 70s, and there was a man who he worked for the government. He was not in the uniform. He was what at that time we called a tech rep. He worked for some government civilian agency that provided some kind of services. I think it was some electronic services to the units who were in Germany at the time. His civilian job was to provide support for the military equipment that his company provided to the government, and he was there to make sure that things stayed straight. In the course of our relationship, I think I was a communication and electronics officer in the battalion at the time, and his son died. A young son, very young son, not 10 years old as I recall. And it was a real blow to he and his wife. He was a man. In those times, I would have called him an older man, but now an older man means something to me that it didn't mean when I was 30. And he had a young son, and this young boy died. For some reason, he and his wife invited my family to his home for dinner, and I was struck by the fact that the boy's room had not been changed at all since the boy died. Everything was in the room like it was on the day when the little boy died, and it was a surprise to me. It was strange to me. This must mean something bad. Sound is low. She texts me instead of you. It was a surprise to me, and I had not had that kind of experience before. The more information I obtained about the thing, the more clearly I understood that it was a shrine. He and his wife had created a shrine in honor, memory, recognition of their son who was gone. What's the difference between a shrine and an altar? And do you have either in your house? You say you have neither a shrine nor an altar in your house? Okay. Where do you pray in your house? Do you pray? Do you have like a room? I told you about my friend in the country in Essex County who told her members that they should have a prayer closet. And so this lady went into the closet, a real closet, a closed closet in her house, and she came back and told the pastor, she said, well, it was kind of cramped in there with all the stuff in there. So she went in a real closet. She went in a closed closet. because the pastor told us she ought to go in her prayer closet. Where do you worship in your house? Where do you pray in your house?
Well, it used to be in my back room, but I had to change it. So now I'm in my garage.
You pray in your garage.
Yeah, I got a detached garage in his back. So I go back there now and pray.
That's is there an altar?
I would say that's my spot.
It's your spot, okay.
Yeah. It's because it's peaceful back there for me, and nobody disturbs me. So, yeah.
Anybody else?
I go to my den, and he's right. If I'm up and can't sleep, that tells me I'm supposed to be up for real, and I go in my den.
That's your praying ground. We used to call our a certain moment in worship in Olive Grove. I think when I got here, we'll call it an altar call. I was in another church a long time ago, where when we came to that place on the bulletin, it said ALTER call, and I thought that was a really good name for it, altar call, as opposed to an altar call, because you go there for alteration. But I see you maskless, Reverend, and got your hand on your microphone. You ready to talk to me?
The difference between a shrine and altar. The shrine, based on, it's a place where people tend to hold on to what has passed, and they don't move anything just like it always was, and they tend to idolize that area. Where an altar is a place where you go to worship your God, where you go, a place where you look for healing, deliverance, silence, comfort at the altar, versus the shrine takes you back, keeps you locked. And I tend not to, the question is, do you have an altar? I have found so many places where I meet God. I love to go down out back in the swing by the water and early in the morning. I don't tend to have one specific place where I go. Now, when I want an answer, I pull myself to the study. And there I meet God. But when I want to worship and take him to an place, I get open to an openness where he is.
What I really appreciate about your explanation is, especially regarding an altar, it's a place where you go to meet God, and you distinguish the place where you go to meet God for a conversation from the place where you go to meet God for a contemplation, for a study. I'm in here in pursuit of an answer that I know I can find if I look, because I know the stuff that I need to answer the question is in here. That's why I call it my study. I go in here to study. And you distinguish that from the altar, which is a place where you go to worship. You go to that place to encounter God in a different way, not for information, but for inspiration. And then I would argue with you regarding your thing about a shrine being a place where we go and we idolize the whoever or whatever is the subject of our presence whatever calls us to this place as a shrine. If you think about the numbers of times you've seen flowers at the site of an accident or the side of the road, the shrines that people have erected in memory or in honor of someone who has died. But I hope that people who erect such shrines don't idolize the people who have died, but sometimes they do. And sometimes that's exactly what happens. That's the kind of problem that we encounter in Judges chapter 17. What's happened is things have fallen apart, and things fall apart among the children of Israel on a regular basis. From time to time, they find themselves in good standing with God and happy about their relationship. But there are other times when the writers say, again, they did evil in the sight of God, or words to that effect. And so it happens over and over because there is an urge, a tendency, or something in us to need something to hold on to cling to. And in the case of Judges chapter 17, things, the faithful people who had been for 20 years seeking God in a really meaningful way find themselves being losing their focus and losing their way, and things fall apart. Things fall apart all the time. The stuff that you build, the good stuff that you build, the good relationships that we build, the best of our times in worship or in service to God have a way of falling apart for some reason. And often the reason has to do with some sense of conflicting attitudes or changes in our attitudes about the way things are going, or the way things in our mind and our separate judgments we would like for things to go. And so we'd be more inclined these days to talk about power struggles in churches rather than people who select idols who are lower than our God. We select a person, a ministry, a practice, a meeting, an anniversary celebration, a group of people, and we lift them to the level of being worshipped. We parade them. We have special marches for them, and we stand when they enter the room, and we have. I'm not sure that we recognize the significance of that kind of practice, but it was a problem in Judges 17, and it might be a problem in the 21st century here in Olive Grove. We have a new voice tonight who's going to read for us, and I'm going to ask her to read through the 13 verses, and then we'll go back. You ready, Mary?
Now a man named Micah from the hill country of Ephraim said to his mother, "The 1,100 shekels of silver that were taken from you, and about which I heard you utter a curse, I have that silver with me. I took it." Then his mother said, "The Lord bless you, my son." When he returned the 1,100 shekels of silver to his mother, she said, "I solemnly consecrate my silver to the Lord for my son, to make an image overlaid with silver. I will give it back to you." So after he returned the silver to his mother, she took 200 shekels of silver and gave them to a silversmith, who used them to make the idol. and it was put in Micah's house. Now this man Micah had a shrine, and he made an ephod and some household gods and installed one of his sons as priest. In those days, Israel had no king. Everyone did as they saw fit. A young Levite from Bethlehem in Judah, who had been living within the clan of Judah, left that town in search of some other place to stay. On his way, he came to Micah's house in the hill country of Ephraim. Micah asked him, "Where are you from?" "I'm a Levite from Bethlehem in Judah," he said, "and I'm looking for a place to stay." Then Micah said to him, "Live with me and be my father and priest, and I'll give you 10 shekels of silver a year, your clothes, and your food." So the Levite agreed to live with him, and the young man became like one of his sons to him. Then Micah installed the Levite, and the young man became his priest and lived in his house. And Micah said, "Now I know that the Lord will be good to me, since this Levite has become my priest."
All right. All right. As we go through this, I want you to identify the number of commandments that are broken. So we're going to walk through these verses, and I want you to identify the number of commandments that have been broken. When you look for evidence that things are falling apart or have fallen apart in a church or a community or a country, where do you look first?
The top,
Where's the top?
the leader.
The leader of what?
I look
We're
first at the families. You see corruption begin in the home first.
Yeah. I think that's likely true. Yes, sir, go ahead.
You say, where do you normally look? Like, where would you, I assume that what you were asking was, where would I lay the blame? And most of us do. We don't look at the family where, like you, sister said, that that's where the problem, we can really begin attacking the problem.
Yeah. When the creation event was done, and God handed over creation to Adam and Eve, it was good. Everything was good. And it was good for some amount of time until they made some bad choices and things began falling apart. I suggest that everywhere you look, when things in a community, a society, a country fall apart, that a major part of the problem is the status of the family. It's the way families manage. When this story begins, it begins with lines about some people who had betrayed the confidence between and among themselves, and in as much as it had to do with God. It's true that the family is God's idea. God came up with the idea of putting the family together. He created the first building blocks and then said to the first people, "Be fruitful and multiply, subdue the earth and replenish it." Yes, Deacon Stokely.
Well, I was just thinking, when you submitted me this about Adam and Eve, and when things fell apart was because, when things fell apart, it was because of man. We see things in our own eyes and think it's right. So things when he thought was right with his wife, he took that bite of that apple. He said, "Well, it can't be ain't no wrong with this. I'm gonna take it." And I think that's another reason why I think things fall apart, because we see things from our own point of view. And most times when we don't take cautious and really observe and look and check the evidence out, we make that mistake And then that was a lot of stuff coming from falling apart, I think.
Well, there is order. Things fall apart when the order is not followed. The order in the garden, it fell apart because the order was changed about the obedience. It fell apart when Adam said, "That woman you gave me," it fell apart because the order was broken there. Now, the first commandment in tonight's story that was broken was when the son overheard listening to his mama's conversation, and then he said, "Oh, I'm gonna fix this, I'm gonna handle this." So the first
now remember, it begins with the son's confession. He said, "Mom, you remember that time when you said somebody stole 1,100 shekels from you? It was me." So what are you saying? Isn't that what verse 1 says?
Well,
You say he overheard a conversation.
I overheard you when you pronounced your curse. Well, I have the money. I stole it.
Right.
It was broken because he had stole, "Thou shalt not steal."
Okay. All right. So that's one commandment that's broken in this so far. Was that verse 2?
Yes.
Okay. So verse 2, the commandment that's been broken is thou shalt not steal.
Correct.
So this son has stolen from his mama.
And even in today's society, we run into that in the families today, where sons are stealing from the mamas and the grandmamas and whoever's in the house. It's that domino effect. They didn't say why he stole it, but they say he stole it. And stealing is stealing. There's no reason, there's no justification.
What happens in a relationship when people who depend on each other steal from each other? Yeah. Deaconess Parker said there's a loss of respect thing. That's why I call it things falling apart. The relationship that's been intact, a relationship that's been tight, it's been good. There's trust, as Deaconess Parker said. If Mary were down here and not trying to keep up with what's back there, she has something to say about this Adam and Eve thing. Yes, Mary, I already know you.
No, I'm not going to go to Adam and Eve because I'll be here all night. But this relationship was out of order, which might have led to the stealing, because she has not held him accountable at all.
Mm-hmm.
She does not require him to honor her at all.
Mm-hmm.
She's actually going to celebrate him after confessing that he stole the money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. And after he steals the money, what she says to him, and go ahead.
Yes, now that's the most amazing thing to me.
What's that?
That, okay, it was her money.
Right.
He stole it from her.
Right.
He confessed.
Right.
"Mama, I stole your money."
Mm-hmm.
So she's rejoicing. "Oh, thank you, I got my money back." So then she's rejoicing and she's taking the money, the next commandment that's broken, and making a shrine out with part of the money as a God. "Thou shalt have no other God before me."
So see, that's the second commandment. That's broken.
That's broken.
Look at she's such a good student. All you got to do is tell her where it is, and she just tell her what it is, and she finds it. So Mary's perspective is that when this mother might have made a correction for her son, instead she makes an excuse for her son. Now, tell me that didn't happen this morning, where a child made a mistake just like this mistake, or much like this mistake, and stole from his family, and the mother didn't say, that's all right, and let him go on his way. It's the way we contribute to things falling apart, in as much as we don't make corrections or acknowledgments. I wonder what this boy expected when he said, Mama, I got to tell you something. That 1,100, I got it, but I'm going to give it back to you because I'm sorry. I heard you curse. Maybe it's because he heard him curse. He heard a curse. Yes, Mary?
I'm just been out of shape because a lot of times we think about an event and we don't understand this has been a slow road to hell. She's about to make an idol to the Lord for the stealing son. I mean, that's some twisted thinking, which means they've been messed up for a while. Their understanding of who God is and what their responsibility and accountability to him is has been out of order for a long time. When we started losing the order in the 50s, just like the Eden, and then we started divorcing, and then we had the sexual revolution, and then we got abortions killing 1 million and billion babies all over. Now we want to know why the kids are shooting each other. It's a slow road to hell, is what it is.
Oh my, things are falling apart, and the erosion begins with the erosion of the family. So when parents stop taking responsibility for their children, and when parents stop making corrections for their children, when parents stop holding their children to task and just saying, I appreciate you bringing back what you stole, but you need to know that you're going to have to pay for that. It's going to cost you something. In this case, it didn't cost him anything. As a matter of fact, he received a reward for it. And Mary says he had an opportunity to make a graven image that's supposed to be in honor of God. I solemnly consecrate my silver to the Lord for my son to make an image. What? It's the confusion that Mary raises, the loss of focus. It's to the Lord. It makes you wonder what they did in the years when the judges reigned and ruled. And he says, I'm going to make this graven image. I'm going to make an idol, and I'm going to give it back to you. That sounds like somebody who's deeply troubled, and somebody who does not really have a clue about either the relationship between Israel and God or their obligations and responsibilities to Israel and God. So the family that God put intact is now falling apart. What did the father do in these verses 1 through 6? He didn't do nothing.
I ain't seen no father in this whole.
Yeah, Mary. That's where Mary gets on Adam and Eve. Said Adam's supposed to be the man, and so Eve said, "No, forget about that. Just eat this and shut up." And so he ate it and shut up. And then when God came to ask him about, so I left you running things. What happened? He said, "Man, you should have given me a better woman than that." Say what? Say what?
Yes. See, that's the order.
Uh-huh.
And so we don't see the father in 17.
Uh-huh.
And the order It's not even in order.
Yeah.
There is no order.
We don't have any clue that when the son told the mother that he was the one who stole, that she said, I'm gonna talk to your daddy, and we're gonna figure out what to do about this. But you go over there and sit down, and we're gonna call you. That didn't happen. And too often, either there is no daddy to call for the mother to have a conversation with, or the call never takes place. There's no such. So Reverend Falcon says it's a problem of order. It's just, there's an order that we do well to follow. Yes, Mary.
I'm trying not to talk too much, but this is crazy. Is it possible that since she has so much money, she didn't think she needed that man, and we redefined the role of father to provider and forgot that he's the mantle and the covering, and we all in a hot mess now because we're out here in broken homes because the order was broken long before with a bad understanding of what the covering is supposed to be.
And see, the last verse in 5, it says, in those days Israel had no king. Everyone did as they saw fit. So when there is, the order is not in place. And like Deacon Bell was saying earlier about the head, when the head is not in place to set the order, to maintain the order, to keep the order, it's everybody do what they want to do, what they feel is right in their sight.
Yeah. And you don't have to go to the nation or the country or the state or the church or the city to find that head. That's why I was trying to get Deacon Bell to come to. It starts at that lowest level. The lowest level of organization that God gives to us is the family. And God has ordered things so that the man is ostensibly the head of the family. But in the absence of a man, or in the absence of him behaving in a manly way and doing the things that he ought to nurture, to provide for, to care for, to protect his family, something else happens, and everybody does what seems right in their own eyes. Yes, Mary?
I can't help it because I think we get all out of twisted, and it doesn't even matter what role God gives you. I keep remembering how magnificent and powerful and influential Deborah was, but the scripture took time to tell who her husband was. So she was still honoring that man with all of the responsibilities she had. I don't know where we got to the point where we thought we could break the order and not suffer the consequences. And I ain't saying keeping the order is always easy, depending on who you're married to, but the order is the order.
Have mercy, Lord. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I gotta get in this. This is good because we talking about order, but the mother had an image, was her son, and she put him over top or everything. Cause even when he came and confessed to her, that look, Mom, I stole your money. Now that been my mom, I'd probably backing up a little bit.
I wouldn't know you today.
Yeah, exactly. And then my dad, he would have been all she wrote. But she said there and said, well, blessed be the Lord on my son. So she gave him really permission that it's okay to do what you done. And she made him to be a golden image of herself because she respected him more than she did herself and the Lord, see, and me. Because she took it to a point where it wasn't no more order. It was the image that she got a hold to. And he was the image that she made to be.
I see. Yes, ma'am.
Well, when you see this with the mother, I see it so often until, as far as the child not being held accountable, but also replacing the child as the father. And so when it was not being held, by putting and then I see the mother build whole shrines and the whole thing around the child. I guess we're just saying the same thing everybody's saying, but I just had a vision of some family members in my head, and how the consequences of it. So.
It's easy for us to look around and see, even if it's art imitating life on television or movies, where children end up taking over families, where children end up running families, where parents end up catering to children as though the children knew stuff. But all children think they know stuff, and they say to their parents from time to time, "You just don't understand." They say, "I probably understand better than you think." I've been around this road once or twice myself, but if we follow the example in this text and allow the children to behave however they decide, and then reward or refuse or decline to correct or punish them for their behavior, it should not surprise us that they turn out being like they turn out. Let's see what verses 7 through 13 have to say.
I would just say that, and I'm with Lorna, and that unfortunately when people get lonely and their life gets out of order, their identity comes from very strange places. And I think some of these mamas' identity comes from their children rather than vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
They lose their identity in Christ and look for love wherever they can
In all the wrong places.
Wherever they can control the circumstance, that's where they stay.
That's why I call this when things fall apart. Yes, ma'am. Verses 7 through 13.
A young Levite from Bethlehem in Judah, who had been living within the clan of Judah, left that town in search of some other place to stay. On his way, he came to Micah's house in the hill country of Ephraim.
Hang on right there for a minute. Why do you go back to that 7? Why do you imagine this Levite left from Bethlehem in Judah?
He was doing almost like the same thing. He was going to do what he wanted to do.
He's looking for greener pastures. Things not going that well for him wherever he's come from. If he is indeed a Levite, then one of the problems he had was his source of income. A Levite depended upon the kindness of strangers. It was the church. It was the religious order that provided for the Levites. And I used to have a friend in New Jersey who was a hairdresser, and Misty told me 30 years ago that when the economy goes bad, the first thing people stop getting is their hair done. She said, and then they start doing the hair at their homes on their own. And I said to Misty, no, that might be the second thing they stop doing. The first thing they stop doing is bringing their money to the church. They stop their tithes and offerings. That's the first thing they stop doing. Maybe the second thing is going to the beauty parlor. But the first thing they stop doing is meeting their obligations to their religious obligations, their responsibility to bring the tithe into the storehouse that it might be meat. The Levite depended on the tithe. That's how the Levites made their way. They didn't have jobs. They didn't do stuff. They didn't have allotments, and they didn't inherit wealth. So a Levite in Bethlehem who's not being taken care of in a manner that works for him might leave Bethlehem and go somewhere else in the same way that a preacher who is not pleased with the size of his congregation and their ability to take care of him goes looking for a bigger venue, a bigger church where he can make more money. some people are motivated more by money than they are by anything else. And here's a man who's been made a promise. The system is set up so that he'd be taken care of by a system, but when the system fails him, he says, "Man, I got to leave. I got to break out of here." Mm-hmm. Yes, Reverend.
And it reminds me of in yesteryear when pastors were called to churches, and it still goes on today as well. And they had houses set for the pastor to live in, the pastor's family, and they took the pastor that was called did not have to work, just like the Levite.
Didn't have to work outside the church.
Outside the church,
Right.
yeah, correct. So therefore, the pastor, because the pastor's total responsibility was to serve the church in every capacity,
Right.
so that was given all the time
Right.
that was required.
Right.
But so here, this Levite, this pastor back in, that is doing, if you call to the church, we're going to take care of you. That's why the tithes and offerings bring it to support the church. Where sometimes, the pastor didn't come to see me, the pastor didn't call, but the pastor had to go work on a secular job because the church was not supporting him to give him or her, to give all of that time. So you're still looking at when the order has changed. The order of the church, the responsibility of the church. In the scriptures, that's where the Levite, if the church, nobody was taking care of the Levite had to go and find, the scripture said, fortune.
Yeah, he decided to go.
Yeah.
Verse 8, Mary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He left that town in search of some other place to stay. And on his way, he came to Micah's house in the hill country of Ephraim. Go ahead, Mary.
Micah asked him, "Where are you from?" "I'm a Levite from Bethlehem in Judah," he said, "and I'm looking for a place to stay." Then Micah said to him, "Live with me and be my father and priest, and I'll give you 10 shekels of silver a year, your clothes and your food."
What's weird? Huh?
He said, he's going to be my father too. My priest and my father.
Right. So here is a grown man who says to a young man, "Come be my daddy and my priest." Now we've read that Micah has created this place and it's created this order that's outside the scope of what a Levite should understand himself doing, so that he considers leaving a priest in Israel and becoming a priest in idolatry. So he gets an invitation, and what's the enticement? Money. I'll give you 10. How much you making over there? How much they paying you over there? I tell you what, I'll pay you. I'll beat that. I'll give you 10 shekels of silver a year, your clothes and your food. So you don't have to worry about anything. If you come over here and be a priest for me. Hang on, Mary. Yes, Lorna.
Well, it reminds me of when I was
Turn your microphone on, Mary. Go ahead, Lorna.
It reminds me of when I was a recruiter in the Navy. That sounds like my recruiting too. It sounds exactly what I said, but not quite like mine. But you join, I'm gonna give you so much money. Your clothes are gonna be provided, and your food. And it sounded just like the recruiting.
3 hots in the cot.
And just sign here, press hard, 6 copies.
Yeah, a lot of people to do a lot of different things for money. Yes, Mary.
Well, this Levite's already kind of twisted. That's why he left his home church and the calling he was supposedly had and assigned by God.
Yep.
And he doesn't really have to do the job of father and priest. It sounded to me what the man gave him as authority to do whatever he wanted to do. Now, mostly that would be a father's role. Don't mean he's got to have wisdom or anything else. He's got a free ride, and all he's got to do is make Micah feel good, like his mama did.
How many more have you come across? Any more commandments? Reverend Bell said there was the graven image one, and there was the stealing one. Any more? Say what? The boy didn't honor his mother.
Yeah, honoring your father and mother didn't happen.
Anything else? Now, would you call it a lie when the boy had stolen his mama's money, and she said somebody stole my money, and he didn't say nothing? Is that a lie? It's not the truth. Well, how many choices are I getting now? It's either the truth or a lie. So I ask you, is it a lie? You say, well, it's not the truth. So there's some deception going on here, where for whatever amount of time it lasted, where he could have said to his mama, "Mama, I'm so sorry, I stole your money. Here, take it back." Yes, Lord.
Well, it seems as though now his shrine is now legitimate. You know, he bought himself a priest, and so now he can justify that it's good to go.
Not only did he buy a priest, he bought a real priest. He bought a Levite priest. Now, when he made his own son a priest, said, "Come here, son, I'm going to license you and ordain you, and you're going to be a priest in my denomination. This is my idol. This is my God, and I need a priest, and so I'm going to lay my hands on you and make you a priest. So you be good." And then, I wonder if he felt weird, felt there was something wrong with that, so that he prayed for a Levite, a real priest, to come along. And here comes this young brother into the camp, and he said, "So what you doing here?" He said, "Man, I'm looking for somewhere to stay." He said, "Really?" He said, "Well, where you from?" "I'm a Levite from Judah." "So you know something about praise. You know something about worship. You know something about God. What does Micah mean?" Yeah, son of, no. Who is like Yahweh? The name is Makua, the whole thing, and the shortened version is Micah. So he has this. His name, he doesn't manage to live up to his name. His name, there's a lot of irony in it. Who is like Yahweh? Not you. Yeah. So perhaps that's him. Either Micah covets the position of God, or the son covets the wealth of the mother. But that's another commandment being broken in these verses. So there is this desire for what belongs to somebody else, what's not yours.
And for them to actually he made a private chapel made the shrine, out of the things that, out of gods and stuff like that, even out of the stolen money. Although he stole it from his mama and gave it to his mama, part of it. And so when you the the temple was composed of items that were not acceptable to God.
Yeah, certainly, it made idols, yes, Lorna. Let me read you chapter 17 from the New Living Translation. There was a man named Micah who lived in the hill country of Ephraim. And one day he said to his mother, I heard you place a curse on the person who stole 1,100 pieces of silver from you. Well, I have the money. I was the one who took it. The Lord bless you for admitting it, his mother replied. He returned the money to her, and she said, I now dedicate these silver coins to the Lord in honor of my son. I will have an image carved and an idol cast. And so, when he returned the money to his mother, she took 200 coins and gave them to a silversmith who made them into an image, an idol. And these were placed in Micah's house. Micah set up a shrine for the idol, and he made a sacred ephod and some household idols. Then he installed one of his sons as his personal priest. In those days, Israel had no king, and all the people did whatever seemed right in their own eyes. And one day a young Levite who had been living in Bethlehem in Judah arrived in that area. He had left Bethlehem in search of another place to live, and as he traveled, he came to the hill country of Ephraim, and he happened to stop at Micah's house as he was traveling through. Where you from? Micah asked him. He replied, I'm a Levite from Bethlehem in Judah, and I'm looking for a place to live. Stay here with me, Micah said, and you can be a father and priest to me. I'll give you 10 pieces of silver a year, plus a change of clothes and your food. And the Levite agreed to this, and the young man became like one of Micah's sons. And so Micah installed the Levite as his personal priest, and he lived in Micah's house. And Micah said, I know the Lord will bless me now, because I have a Levite living and serving as my priest. You ever found money? I mean, like real money? Like $100. And did you say that the Lord is blessing me right now? Right? Yeah. I don't know who lost this money or what it was, but the Lord knew I needed $100 and put this $100 in my way. Now, it's one thing to by chance find $100 was undesignated and don't have nowhere to go. But it's another thing to know that the money belongs to somebody else. It's one thing for this Levite to surrender and to perform rituals before an idol out of ignorance. But this man knows good and well that he's not ignorant about the difference between the one true God and an idol. The text says that he had one idol God made and some other idols to go with it, and he set up a shrine. Micah set up a shrine in his house. Now, at the time, the place to go to worship was the temple. See, when you go to the temple, you can go to worship. That's why I ask you about whether you have an altar in your house. Now, we worship everywhere we go. We worship in our cars, and we worship in our homes, and we worship in our backyards, and in our bathrooms and garages, and we worship in wherever we go. But there was a time when the only place legal for worship to take place was in the temple. But Micah decides, you know what? How much gas, camel gas, as it takes to get over there to that to worship? I think I'm gonna just build my own spot in here. And so he did. Yes, Reverend.
You know, Pastor, looking closely at this, two things can be going on about the order. This last verse, Michael said, "Now I know God will make things go well with me." Why? I've got a Levite for a priest. But the part is, what threw it all out of his father? He was looking for a father because that's what he said. You can be my father. And many people that don't have that, you come and live with me, and the order, things will be set in order where the father is there. He's still seeking God's will, God, for things to be well in his life, because that's easy. Then I know that God will make things go well with me, because my father is here, and I have if the father's in the house, if I have a father, he's making his own father.
Yeah, that is what he said, and I guess it speaks to the confusion in this whole concern and how things really have fallen apart, and the bottom is where the top belongs, and so on. Yes, Lorna.
Well, he wants to be covered, and if the father covers, so he's got the
It's a role.
So he's got somebody he's imitating that particular position. So it's not, but he's saying he in fact he consecrates him. So and that's wrong because he can't do that.
You consecrate your daddy and your priest.
And
He's
priest.
not a priest, and he
He
consecrates
consecrates
somebody else a priest.
So all of it's wrong, but he's thinking that the things he's saying is right. He's making it right. He thinks it's right with God because he says it's right with God, so he thinks it's right with God, but it's not. But he's saying all the right things, and he's got all the different accoutrements that go along with it. I got a priest, I got this, I got a temple, I got this.
I got a Levite priest.
I got a Levite, and so I don't have to go to the temple now, and it's good to go now. I'm good, and God, it's right here. I'm good to go. But it's, we know it's only what he thinks is right.
Yes, Mary.
He doing the same thing he was taught how to do by that crazy mama. I keep thinking Judah was one of the tribes that was supposed to be one of the few vestiges that understood who Yahweh was.
Right.
So things have gotten real bad, and confusion has been going on for generations now. He's doing the best he know how, but it's going to send him straight to hell, just like some of the stuff we doing when we forfeit parenthood over to the public school, and now they got their whole curriculum, and we're doing the same thing.
Well, that's the lesson to be learned from this chapter. Here is a construct, and they made it really, really small with a very few characters. But the problem, they've broken 7 out of 10 commandments in just 13 verses, and it has resulted in people who have lost their intact relationship with God, and who have introduced idolatry to go along with their worship of God, and who have lost the integrity of their families, so that all of this is indicative of a place where things have altogether fallen apart. They lost sight of what they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to do, and they have lost sight of what the law requires, and have decided to make up some rules of their own. And here's a man who had enough money to do whatever he wanted to do, and so he said, I don't really need them. I think what I'm going to do is make myself a religion, and make myself a shrine, make my own temple, and get my own priest. And so he called them all by himself. So sometimes a preacher is sent, and sometimes the preacher just went. And this is a case where the preacher, he just went. Lorna, you holding that microphone like that because you want to say something?
Oh, I was going to say about that preacher, he knew better.
Yeah.
He's going to be held, he should, and I believe he would be held accountable much more even than Micah. because he knew better.
Yeah, he's supposed to be, his responsibility is to serve God. And he fails. He fails to do that. And he walks away from it. He walks off the job because he don't like to pay. Yes, sir.
And we just talking about commandments. They broke the first one. Had no other God before him. That was the first commandment they broke, right out the gate. Because they put everything before God. And engraved in images. So that was the first commandment they broke too.
Yeah. The only commandments that we see that we could tell from this that they didn't break, the Sabbath, because we don't see any mention of the Sabbath in here. We don't see any mention of adultery, and we don't see any mention of killing. But other than that, they pretty much, yeah, they pretty much broke all the rest of them. So that in just 13 verses, it's the inability and the failure to keep the law that results in the falling apart of the family, and when that happens, it results in all kinds of negative consequences for any society. Except for the blood of Jesus to cover us, we don't have any right to be bragging about our ability to do what thus saith the Lord without error. But thanks be to God, we do have a Savior and who covers the multitude of our sins. It's 8:01, and I have gone too far. But it's a good text for us to visit, to examine ourselves. Check your house and see if you have any shrines or altars and what they mean to you, so that you don't inadvertently worship someone or something in your possession that you have placed before God. Otherwise, you're on the road to breaking commandments yourself. It's been good, and we are grateful for your presence and hope that our time together has been beneficial to you. Hope that you've learned a thing or two and been inspired and motivated and ready to go do something to glorify God. Stay away from people who try to buy your faith and buy your ability to worship God. You're not don't believe everything you hear from everybody you hear it from. Test the spirit by the Spirit before you go off in your own behavior. Sunday morning is the 117th celebration of our church's anniversary, and we're going to do that in grand fashion on Sunday morning. We'll have Reverend Tim Woodson from Atlanta, who is one of the principals in the Mighty Clouds of Joy, and he'll be our morning preacher. At the same time, we're going to enshrine some of our celebrated and historic members in Ancestors Hall, 2 of them, and then at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we'll have the Mighty Clouds of Joy in concert, along with Fully Committed, Deacon Ricky White and Fully Committed, the Word Singers, and 2 other groups. I should be able to remember them off the top of my head, but I'm running trying to get my time in. So you can get a ticket for $20 if you get it Friday, or there's some members around who have tickets available. And then at the door, you can get in for $25. We'll be happy to have you. So come in and celebrate with us our 100th anniversary. There's Mary coming through like she always does. The Word Singers and the Harmonizing Echoes as a part of that afternoon celebration. It'll be a wonderful thing. And I hope you can be a part of it and help us celebrate 117 years of God's using Olive Grove to be a blessing in the world. In the meantime, thank you so much for being here, and good night and God bless.